The global version of the Xiaomi 14 is now available almost everywhere, and considering its size and where it stands in Xiaomi's flagship series of phones, I thought it would be really interesting to compare its cameras with the cameras on the Samsung Galaxy S24 Plus. With the Leica lenses, filters, and capable camera hardware, the Xiaomi 14 is already known to have a really good camera system. The Galaxy S24 Plus is not known for its big camera hardware upgrades, but I noticed a huge improvement in its post-processing compared to previous years, where it compared pretty well with even the iPhone 15 Pro. I took a bunch of pictures and videos with these two phones in a lot of different environments. Now, if you like traveling like this or always working outside at cafes like me, here's a little tip: always use a VPN like Ivacy VPN, the sponsor for this video. Connecting to public or even secured Wi-Fi networks that don't belong to you opens up your device to a potential hacker that can spy on all your activity while stealing your data like your personal info or even passwords. This is why I really recommend using Ivacy VPN. By masking your IP address and your online activity, Ivacy VPN protects you and your device from these type of attacks. I always make sure to have it on when I'm outside to give myself that extra sense of safety. Of course, while doing that, Ivacy VPN gets you the double benefit of letting you stream and watch TV shows and movies that aren't available in your country. A lot of other VPNs actually get detected and blocked by streaming services, but Ivacy VPN actually works here for Netflix, Disney+, Hulu, and more. Or for apps like YouTube, I've also been using Ivacy to enable region lock features like picture-in-picture mode, which is only free for US users or for YouTube Premium subscribers. And the best part is you can get Ivacy VPN right now for just over $1 a month, which is just a one-time payment of $69.99 for a 5-year plan. That actually makes it one of the most affordable VPN packages out there. Plus, by using my coupon code, you can get an additional 10% off. So if you want security, entertainment, convenience, and save a ton of money, click the link below and get Ivacy VPN today. Okay, now let's take a look at the results and see which one looks better in each situation. Starting off with the easiest conditions during daylight, of course, both phones do a really good job capturing clean, vibrant images. At first, I was really surprised how similar most of these photos looked, especially in terms of post-processing styles. I saw a pretty big stylistic difference between the Xiaomi 14 and the iPhone 15 Pro, but between Xiaomi and Samsung, the results are more similar than not. If you do pixel peep, from ultra-wide to 2x digital to 3x optical, Xiaomi always does seem to capture a little more detail. But when zoomed out, I really couldn't tell the difference in terms of clarity or resolution. What does make the difference is that while Samsung doesn't over sharpen as much anymore, Xiaomi definitely leans toward the softer side, smoothing out rough details in the grain for a cleaner photo. Some photos look virtually the same, but you just get a more pleasing visual when looking at Xiaomi's because it looks a little less processed, and you can kind of tell that the details look less rough around the edges. Samsung photos are also very clean, but there's definitely more noticeable grain compared to Xiaomi's. I also noticed Xiaomi had an easier time quickly focusing, especially when there are moving subjects or when my hand is moving. But I was really surprised how the Galaxy's 3x telephoto was keeping up with the Xiaomi's. The Galaxy's 3x pictures are still grainier with slightly less detail, but very comparable results, especially for wide shots of sites and environments. The color tuning is very similar between them, but if you look closely, there are some differences. The Galaxy adds more vibrance to the photos, while the Xiaomi's Leica vibrant filter saturates the colors a little more. Sometimes the vibrance is a little too much on the Samsung, so I did prefer Xiaomi's color reproduction at most times, even though it wasn't a huge difference. But while I do prefer the general color reproduction on the Xiaomi, it does have a bit of a purple tint, where I did prefer the more neutral tint on the Samsung photos. I have noticed that compared to Xiaomi, the Galaxy sometimes raises the highlights a little too much, blowing out some photos. But then again, sometimes I see Xiaomi doing the same in some shots too, not as often, but sometimes. With slightly higher contrast levels and ever so slightly better dynamic range on the Xiaomi's photos seem stylistically more photographic, while the Galaxy is going for more of a balanced, realistic route that's not too bland either. For portraits, subjects, and medium shots, Xiaomi also noticeably had more natural depth of field due to the sensor size, which adds on to that photographic look. Samsung goes for more of a wide focus, much like most phone cameras. For the front-facing camera, I actually preferred selfies on the Galaxy. Ironically, Xiaomi is going for too much of a balanced, bright look that brightens all shadows. I am satisfied with both because they're both flattering and both pretty good with my skin tones, but the Samsung just takes much more dynamic selfies that don't look like there's any filtering going on. They're realistic without being bland, which is the best combo in my opinion. In terms of 4K video recording, I noticed the stabilization to be about the same at 1x or 2x. But at 3x optical, both weren't too stable, especially when walking, so I can't say that one is really that much better than the other. But when staying still, Xiaomi's stabilization is noticeably better. Overall, Xiaomi's video quality looks cleaner most of the time. The Galaxy goes back to its over-sharpening tendencies more so on the video side, so the video looks a little grainier and not as clean as the Xiaomi's softer processing. But just like the stills, I did prefer the selfie videos on the Galaxy. There's much better range on the Galaxy, while the Xiaomi is overexposing. I do like the Xiaomi 14's wider angle, but I overall do prefer the Samsung selfie video quality. Let's move on to slightly tougher conditions indoors where there's a clear distinction between the two phones. With less natural light coming through, the Galaxy seems to start struggling a bit while the Xiaomi keeps performing. The Xiaomi 14 captures more details, produces much more natural depth of field, and overall has a much more photographic look to the photos for both 1x and 3x optical shots. Xiaomi also captures the colors a lot more accurately, capturing the mood of the actual scene a lot better, especially for these macro type of shots. The Galaxy also seemed to struggle a bit to keep a clear focus on objects and subjects indoors with less daylight helping it out. But I will say that the Galaxy does a better job balancing the indoors and the bright daylight coming through. For selfies, just like the rear camera, Samsung does a much better job balancing the indoors and the bright daylight coming through. But the funny thing is I much prefer how I look on the Xiaomi. The focus is better and there's less grain all over. But when there's even less light, Xiaomi seems to over smoothen my face. So at this point, I start to prefer the Galaxy. For video recording indoors, Xiaomi had a bit of trouble with focus than the Galaxy. But like the photos, the Xiaomi captures the scene a lot more visually pleasing and accurately when it gets the focus right. This also applies for the 3x optical video, which is much clearer and less fuzzy on Xiaomi. For selfie video, Xiaomi had a tougher time balancing the indoor and outdoor light where it really blew out and overexposed. So the Galaxy did a better job in these situations most of the time. But when the light balance hit just right, I do prefer how the Xiaomi made me look. Okay, now let's go over the low light photos, which I admit was a pretty clear win for the Xiaomi all around. The Xiaomi 14 seemed to balance light sources much better in low light. It also held focus much better and faster than the Galaxy. There was a higher level of detail and photos were much clearer and cleaner compared to Samsung's fuzzier photos. This was also due to the fact that Xiaomi photos had less grain and dealt with motion and moving objects and subjects better than the Galaxy. When the lighting got tougher, I noticed the Galaxy started to get less bold about its color vibrance and the photos start to look much more muted. So they just didn't look as visually appealing as the Xiaomi 14's photos. Now, just because I think the Xiaomi did a better job here doesn't mean that the Galaxy did a bad job. I think both phones did a really good job capturing the bright night streets of Seoul. On the video side, Samsung still looked slightly grainier and the stabilization was quite not as smooth as a Xiaomi, especially when staying still. But for 3x optical video when walking, the Galaxy surprisingly had better stabilization. Color reproduction looked about the same, so the rear video recording wasn't a huge win for the Xiaomi. Then for selfie videos, Xiaomi had better stabilization and produced cleaner, smoother footage with less grain. Okay, so putting everything together, both phones have very capable and reliable camera systems that I love using. But when we examine really closely, I do prefer the Xiaomi 14's photos in most situations. I think the Leica tuning really gives a nice photographic look to the Xiaomi 14's photos. The depth, the color science, and the cleaner look really helps create dynamic photos that are hard to match from other smartphones. The video results are very debatable and much more closer between the two phones, but for the kind of footage I take, I did prefer the Xiaomi. The one clear win I will say that the Galaxy has is the selfie camera, which was very reliable and took more dynamic photos and videos than the Xiaomi. Those are just my thoughts. Let me know in the comments which phone you prefer for camera quality. If you like this video, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel. It would really help out a lot. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next video.